Stand by to fall in, Polk County. This is today's veteran. Hello and welcome, and on behalf of everyone at the Polk County Office of Veterans Services, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Brian Lacey, sitting in for Tim Kirkhart, and on this installment of Today's Veteran, we talk about how veterans and their families are transitioning to life after the military, but first, helping veterans to find employment through job referral services, job development, job training, and career management is one of the many things that Career Source Polk does for veterans, and they do it with pride. Every veteran receives priority service at Career Source Polk. They are seen by the first available employment security representative who will be able to assist them in developing an individual plan of action by assessing their skill level, education, and training. Joining me in studio is Daniel Coy. Daniel is a Disabled Veterans Outreach Program Specialist too for Career Source Polk. Been a while since you've been in the studio. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
You know, it's a job, and I'm above ground, so.
On the good side of the dirt.
Exactly. Daniel, talk to me a little bit about your military service, if you would, please.
Okay. Well, back in the late '80s, mid '80s, I joined the Marine Corps. And I was assigned to be a fire direction controlman for an artillery unit. And I was in Camp Pendleton for 6 years, and I deployed 3 times with the Navy overseas on what they call a Westpac, which is a Far East deployment. Did 9 months in the Gulf and decided to get out in '92.
And then, of course, after you got out of the military, you still have a little bit of military service too, as a civilian?
Yeah, I ended up working on an Air Force base for a couple of years. Doing asbestos abatement, and then I moved to Florida and I got into law enforcement and then into social work.
And of course the social work took you to the avenue with Career Source Polk.
It did, yeah. When I was in school, I did a VA work study, so I ended up working with the local veteran employment representative, which at the time was Polk Works, and I actually had, he retired, so I got the last few years of experience with him. From there, I went into the food stamp program, went to a private company for 14 years, and now I'm back as a Disabled Veteran Outreach Program Specialist.
We'll talk a little bit more about the Disabled Veterans Outreach Program in just a few, but just for the average person maybe getting out of the military or been out of the military and finds himself in need of the services that Career Source Polk offers, what are some of the things that a veteran can expect when coming to Career Source Polk?
Okay, so normally when you first come in, you're going to be asked if you are a veteran or a spouse of a veteran. We offer what's called priority of service. And what that is essentially it's a head-of-the-line privilege. For example, if we have 50 people that, and you come in number 51, if you're the first veteran, then the next available staff member will see you and bring you back, and they're actually going to do an intake. Get some general information about you and see basically what kind of programs you may or may not qualify for, and also do an evaluation of your needs.
Now, is there a chance that they could possibly work their information in online before getting in, and how would they go about doing that?
Of course, so you can go to employflorida.com, which is the state's website. You can actually register there. You're actually going to read about the priority of service. You also register, give your demographic information. You can start to do a resume there. You can start to do a job search there. There's a whole lot on that website that's available to anybody.
Okay. Now, I want to talk more specifically about what you do, the Disabled Veterans Outreach Program. What exactly is that?
Okay. So what I do is I work with veterans that there's 6 or 7 qualifications for my program. It could be something from homelessness to simply low income. And so after you see our employment security representatives, they'll make that determination if you're eligible, and then they'll offer services to you. And so they'll usually make an appointment with me, and then I'll sit down with you and I'll do an assessment with you that goes in detail about, you know, all your employment history, your education history, your strengths, your weaknesses, what barriers you have to employment. And then we'll together make a determination if, you know, if you need more assistance. If you do need more assistance, then what we can do is then we'll sit down and we'll do an individual employment plan, very in-depth, you know, from your short-term needs all the way up to your long-term needs. You know, do you need resume assistance? Do you need job search assistance? You know, it could be something as simply as, you know, we need to work on your interviewing skills. Anything really employment related or even career related, meaning if you need more education or technical skills, there's so many programs in the area that are available to you. All that'll be included in the plan, and then we'll work at your pace. I'm not going to force, you know, hey, you got to come see me, you know, such and such days. It's depending on you, you know, and then we'll go from there. Usually in the employment plan process, a month or two or three, someone's usually found employment, and we usually satisfy the plan.
Now, when it says disabled veterans, is that according to the VA rating system, or is that?
It is.
And now,
yeah.
what kind of percentage do you have to be rated at, or for?
Yeah. So one of the significant barriers to employment, they have either a disabled veteran, which is 10% or more, or special disabled, which is 30% or more.
Okay.
So those are qualifiers to get.
So as far as your paperwork, when you bring that in, what do you need to bring in? How do you?
It's all self-attestation until money changes hands, so to speak. Until you're accepted into a program that may offer funding, you can tell me that you were in every service, and you know I'll take you at your word. Okay. Once you get into where money does exchange hands for like program support, then they'll probably need a 214.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the program. What are some of the other things that you offer as far as the Disabled Veterans Outreach Program goes?
Okay, so like I said, we'll make the plan and we'll determine what your needs are, okay? I'm not gonna make you do anything you don't wanna do. It's all, I'll make suggestions obviously, but it could be anything from, if you're just getting out of the service, you know, you probably have a very limited idea of what you want to do in the civilian world. We have different assessments. One's called the Career Scope. There's a website called ONET that a lot of people are familiar with. They have something called an interest profiler. And it'll ask you questions. Do you like this? What do you think about that? And from that, it'll build, you know, a profile of suggestions for careers for you.
Well, when it comes to a veteran, and you work with them a lot, do you find that placement is easier or harder just because of you know, the discipline, the training that we've all received, and that for the most part we all have?
Of course, those are very good transferable skills. A lot of veterans I see, if they're coming straight out of the military, they may have unreasonable expectations. I don't know if you remember, but
hey, I was going to set the world on fire.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for a match.
Yeah. Everybody would talk about, oh, you know, I'm going to make $20 an hour and, you know, work 10 hours a week, and, you know. And so a lot of times I have to break the bad news to them, you know, and they don't want to hear it. You know, these veterans, they really don't want to hear it. I would rather they be upset with me, and then, you know, instead of trying to chase something that may just be, like I said, unreasonable. So that's part of it, you know, part of that labor market information. It's strictly facts. In Florida, we have a dedicated statistics center, and that's all they do is collect this information and present it to the public. So, you know, that's part of that process of, you know, they have something now. They didn't have it when I got out. They call it a TAP, or Transition Assistance Program, where they'll actually have professionals come onto the military bases and help with the transition, with resumes, with this is how you do a job search, to kind of get them ready for when we come out here.
A lot of guys getting out of the military, I've seen some of the resumes themselves, and we tend to speak a lot of military
jargon, yeah.
and it really needs to be more to what people can understand.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about
Sure,
that.
just like a foreign language, you know, we need translation. There's actually websites on you can go and find that you'll put in the term and it'll give you the civilian equivalent. I mentioned that ONET website. You can actually put in your occupational code. In the Marine Corps, it was our MOS,
Yeah.
and I think the Army as well. You can put in, like I was a 0844, and it'll tell you, okay, that's a fire direction controlman. And unfortunately, in my case, there's really not a civilian equivalent.
Yeah.
But say, for example, you were a firefighter, or you air traffic control, and then it will also, if there's something similar to it, it will make suggestions like, computer operator or administrative or, something like that. So there is a problem with translation. I usually, as a rule, suggest that you do not use any jargon in a resume. An FSS in one job, that abbreviation might mean something totally different in another job. So, and as a social worker, that might be a family support specialist, might be some kind of fire suppression specialist in a different occupation. So you have to be real careful, spell it all the way out, no abbreviations, things like that. I also use the approach of every resume should be targeted to the job description. A lot of times, a lot of veterans get upset with me. They'll come to me with this one-size-fits-all, real general resume. Everything they did in the world is on this resume,
Yeah.
And I have to tell them, I go through a long story about when I did that work study and I was getting ready to graduate and get out and get a regular job. I had an old guy named Joe Murray. He was actually doing this job. And, and Joe and I, he wanted to look at my resume, and I gave it to him, and we started arguing about it for about a month, because he said, I don't need all these things in there. And I said, yes, I did, and fast forward to the end of the story, about, 20 years later, now I'm the guy with the white beard and, the little bit extra here. And Joe was totally right. That resume should be targeted to what the employer is looking for. As long as you have it or have done it, that's what they're looking for, then that's what should be on that resume.
Well, Daniel, I want to thank you for coming in today, and I appreciate all the information. Anybody needs to ask you any questions, anything whatsoever, as far as the Disabled Veterans Outreach Program, how they go about doing as such?
So 863-508-1100. You can ask for Dan Coy, or my extension is 3323.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on
Not a problem.
and sharing the information
I sure appreciate it.
For more information on the Disabled Veterans Outreach Program, you can give them a call at 863-501-1100 and ask for Dan Coy, or look them up on the web at www.careersourcepolk.com. Warrior Walk is a walk to honor Polk County and Florida soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who have been killed in action while serving during Operation Iraqi Freedom or Operation Enduring Freedom. This year's walk saw the residents of Polk County coming out to support those who have paid the ultimate price. Here's a look at the sights and sounds of this year's event.
While we focus on the task at hand and deal with an ever-changing battlefield and enemy, it is important to reflect on why we are here and what started this conflict. Doing so reminds us of the noble cause for which those we honor today gave their lives. I had to wait a couple of years after 9/11 to join the Marine Corps. I don't ever recall being so impatient as I was then. A week and a half after I graduated, I was on a bus headed for South Carolina. As I stood on line in a barracks in Parris Island, I learned that I was part of a group dedicated to a single purpose. We were taught that we were to place the group and mission above ourselves, and were reminded daily that we may have to pay the ultimate cost to ensure that the unit would go on. It is a profound moment in the life of a young adult when they are told their life is not as important as the successful completion of a mission. The truest measure of devotion to one's friends is whether they consider their lives or the lives of others more important. I saw the devotion to others epitomized by my brothers and sisters over and over during my time in the Marine Corps. From helping a tired buddy on a road march, to braving enemy fire to rescue a fallen comrade. I witnessed that devotion in every aspect of life. The willingness to put others above self is in the very core of everyone in the military. The Marines and sailors who, without hesitation, risked their lives to get me and another Marine to a hospital after we were hit by a grenade demonstrated that as well. I recall the look of genuine concern in the eyes of every member of my unit from the commanding officer down when we entered our patrol base. The love of comrades in combat is without equal and cannot be accurately placed into words. Every person who faced that danger alongside us did so without the slightest concern of personal gain or profit. We all did our part to keep everyone around us safe. As you look at the memorials here today, you see testaments to the lives of men and women who made it clear where they stood regarding the question of their dedication to service. They laid down their lives for others. They did so without grievance or gripe, without hesitation, and without expectation of anything other than that their sacrifice would aid in the fulfillment of a mission and spare the lives of others. These memorials represent the legacy of the absolute finest our nation has to offer. The lives lost in war are our most promising, our brightest, fastest, strongest, and most of all, our most virtuous. These are not people who have chosen a comfortable life with all the finer things and creature comforts. These are people who have chosen lives of austerity and sacrifice. They chose to endure discomfort, pain, isolation, and deprivation on behalf of others. They faced death, and when death came for them, they did not flinch, they did not falter, and they did not waver. They carried on to their last breath so that others may carry on the fight, and that we all may live as a free people.
Welcome back to today's Veteran. I'm your host, Brian Lacey, sitting in for Tim Kirkhart. Military service is difficult, demanding, and dangerous, but returning to civilian life also poses challenges for the men and women who have served in the armed forces. Now, whether a service member is separating after 4 years, retiring after 20, being forced to discharge, or separating due to injury or illness, transition can be a difficult time for many veterans and their families. Joining me in studio is Chris McArthur. Chris is the owner of Patriot Coffee Roasters Black and Brew. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Also, Ken FERRERO. Ken is the owner of Heroes America's Sandwich Shop. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you for joining us. I want to start off with you, Chris. Talk to me a little bit about your military service, if you would, please.
Sure. So I joined the Marine Corps Reserves after my freshman year of college in 2001. I went to recruit training. Shortly after I got back, obviously, 9/11 happened, and pretty soon after, in 2003, my unit was mobilized to participate in Operation Iraqi Freedom. So I did one deployment to Iraq and participated in the invasion force, and returned and finished out my reserve service with 4th Tracks in 2007.
How about you, Ken? Talk to me about your military service.
All right, so right out of high school, I joined the Navy in 2004. got orders to NAS Oceana for my first 2.5 years working at airfield facilities, work on the arresting gear on the runways. It's kind of a general shore duty billet, kind of lucked out. After that, I transferred down to Mayport, Florida, where I was attached to HSL 46. It's a search and rescue squadron, anti-submarine warfare. And I was an aviation structural mechanic, so I worked on hydraulics, structural repair, composite repair, stuff like that. So I did that for about 5 years. I'm deployed twice, once to the Gulf, one to the HOA, the Horn of Africa. We did a bunch of anti-piracy operations, cool stuff like that. And for my last 3 years, I actually took another shore duty billet and I recruited down in Orlando. I did that for 3 years. I got out at the end of 2013, and here I am.
Well, Ken, you, like Chris, are a business owner. And how did you make that transition from military into your business? How long did it take? And talk to me a little bit about that initiative, that thing that we all have. How did that help you in really chasing what you wanted to do in life after military?
Well, definitely the training and skill sets that we all receive, even starting in boot camp, it helped a lot for just the never quit attitude and the teamwork, the camaraderie, and having the integrity to do things the right way. But to be honest, for the last 5 years, I've been trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
If it's any consolation, I think we all do that.
Absolutely. And I've done everything from real estate to insurance adjusting to a painting company, did some flooring, been all over the place. And originally, I was going to open up a Hero's Grill. It was going to be a sandwich or like a burger shop. Just couldn't find a good location, but stumbled across the building I'm in now and modified our menu, and now I'm making sandwiches and people seem to like it. So
it's a great little operation you've got going there.
Thank you.
Chris, a little bit about you. Talk to me about your transition from getting out of the military and opening up your business. Talk to me about some of the challenges you faced and what your military background helped you to overcome.
Sure. Well, my experience is going to be a little bit different because I was on the reserves. So I actually started my business while I was in the reserves towards the end of my service commitment. But similarly, the values that are instilled, that never quit attitude, that ability to deal with those high pressure situations, especially in the restaurant world. Anybody that has ever owned a restaurant will know it's an extremely high pressure, long hours, lots of miserable days. And so I think the military prepares you perfectly for that.
What are you talking about? I had a career like that.
I'm really selling it. But it prepares you for dealing with those challenges. And it's been just a really incredible experience to be able to have an opportunity like this, to open a business in the town that I grew up in. And it's been awesome.
Chris, one thing that you do, and really both of you do, is give back. You have a program that you give back to the military. Talk to me a little bit about that, if you would, please.
Sure. So earlier this year, we started a program called Operation Hero Salute. It's a very simple program. We ask our customers to nominate their loved ones that are currently serving in the armed forces to receive a coffee care package. One of the things that made a big difference for me when I was activated was receiving care packages. Being in a foreign place without the comforts of home, without the tastes of home, eating stuff that I'd rather not even talk about, to be honest with you. To have a flavor of home made a big difference, and I think coffee is something that most of us need at some point. So I think it's a small token of our appreciation, but it gives our customers an opportunity to send something to their loved one, and we send enough coffee for the whole unit, so that makes that individual pretty popular. Yeah.
And how can folks find out more information about the program?
Yeah, if they go to our website, patriotcraftcoffee.com, and click on the About Us section, they'll find Operation Hero Salute there.
Now, Ken, I found you because you're on my route where I go running, and shortly after you opened, I was thoroughly impressed with the business inside and outside. And you really give back also to the community, not only military folks, but really first responders. Talk about the theme of the restaurant and a little bit about, you know, what folks can expect when they go in.
Sure. And of course, you know, I'm a veteran, I'm a patriot for, you know, this great country we live in, and just having the opportunity to do something like we're doing is just, is awesome. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, we're giving back to everybody who, you know, because we're called heroes. You know, a hero could be anybody. It doesn't have to be someone in uniform. It could be, you know, the nurses and the teachers and the doctors and the everyday brothers and sisters helping people other than themselves for, you know, with expecting nothing in return. So with our theme, I mean, you know, we have firefighters and law enforcement coming in there daily and just, you know, bringing their pictures and sharing their stories. And, you know, we give all first responders, veterans, 15% off their entire meal. And I wanted to create a place where we can be proud to come in there and just enjoy and relax, you know, listen to some good music, watch some television, eat some good food. You know, there's so much negativity in the world towards, you know, in a sense, to some people in uniform. So I just wanted to make sure that they knew we were out there and there's people supporting them. So.
And I think another cool aspect at basically the counter out front is you support other people who've been in the military. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So when you walk in our front door, if you look straight up, it's called our Heroes Wall. And basically what it is it's a wall where, you know, even friends and family can bring pictures of their loved ones or themselves who are still serving, or, you know, those who have passed in the line of duty, or, you know, other. For example, I have a couple buddies of mine who I lost in the service, and their pictures are up there now. I have groups coming down from Orlando bringing their pictures of their buddies who have passed, you know, in the line of duty, and it gives you that appreciation and keeps the memory alive, and the ones who have sacrificed, you know, it all, you know, for others. So.
We got just a few minutes left. Chris, if you could really give the folks a little bit of inspiration that may have just gotten out or been out for a while, just give them the idea, the inspiration to go out and do what you do, kind of grab the brass ring and really become part of the American dream, open up their own business. How would you inspire them to do as such?
Sure. Yeah, I would say don't be intimidated while making that transition. I would say know that you possess a value that is unique, that you should be proud of your service, and that there's a lot of value in that, and that the skills that you've obtained during that service are extremely valuable. They give you an advantage that few other people have, and just to leverage that as much as you can.
Ken, how about you? You get the last word on this. If you could inspire a military individual, how would you go about doing as such?
I would just tell them, you know, if you have a dream, go for it. You know, don't procrastinate. I mean, you know, we're here for a short amount of time. Might as well make the best of it. You know, take a chance, jump in both feet. I mean, you know, you can't steal second base with your foot on first. You know, that's a quote my mom always told me growing up, and we always had a poster on the wall for that. And that's what I'll tell everybody. You know, if you have an idea, if you have a dream, just go for it. What do you got to lose?
Well, Ken, Chris, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to thank you for your service, but most of all, I want to thank you for what you do for this community and giving back to the community and making a difference in a community we work, live, and play in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
That's going to do it for this edition of Today's Veteran. I want to thank our guests today, Ken FERRERO, Daniel Coy, and Chris MacArthur. But most of all, I want to thank you for joining us. Remember, for help and information regarding claims, benefits, and services available to veterans and their families, call the Polk County Veterans Services Office at 863-534-5220 or log on to the Polk County website at polk-county.net. I'm your host, Brian Lacey, and we'll see you next month.